Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving deep into one critical 24-hour period in the war in Ukraine. It's a story that really shows two completely different ways of fighting a war, and it's setting a new and honestly pretty dangerous precedent.
So it all kicked off with this one number, 823. Just think about that for a second. That's the total number of missiles and drones that Russia launched at Ukraine in a single night. This wasn't just another attack. It was, by far, the largest combined air assault of the entire war.
And you can just feel the dread in this comment from an observer on the ground. As soon as that first wave of cruise missiles popped up on the radar, heading straight for Kyiv, they knew. They just knew this was going to be a bad one, that something totally unprecedented was happening in the sky.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break all this down. First, we'll look at the sheer scale of the assault itself. Then, we'll get into Ukraine's incredibly calculated retaliation. After that, we'll see what this all means for the wider war on the front lines. And finally, we'll touch on how the technology, the arsenal of this war, is evolving so fast.
All right, let's get right into it with that first part, the assault. We're going to see what exactly made this night of fire a true record breaker.
And when we say record breaker, we really mean it. This wasn't just a small step up. With 823 projectiles, Russia didn't just beat its old record of around 700, it absolutely smashed it. This marked a really dramatic escalation in their air campaign.
So, the big question is, where did all of that firepower go? Well, if you look at the targets, a pretty clear strategy starts to emerge, doesn't it? We're talking about civilian apartment buildings, key infrastructure like a bridge, and then, and this is a big one, for the very first time, a direct strike on the Cabinet of Ministers, a major government building right in the heart of Kyiv.
And of course, these kinds of strikes have a devastating, real-world human cost. It's just tragic. We got reports confirming that a 32-year-old woman and her tiny 2-month-old baby were among those killed. It's just a brutal reminder that when you target civilian areas, it's so often women and children who pay the highest price.
Yeah, and the international reaction was immediate, and it was furious. This quote from the Czech foreign minister really sums up what a lot of leaders across Europe were feeling. They condemned these attacks on civilians and basically said this is exactly why Ukraine needs more military aid for its defense, not less.
So, you've got Russia launching this massive, almost chaotic barrage on cities and symbolic government buildings. How did Ukraine hit back? Well, their strategy, it couldn't have been more different.
And the answer to this question really gets to the very heart of the strategic contrast we saw play out that night.
And this chart just lays it out so clearly. On one side, you have Russia's strategy, which seems focused on psychological impact, using terror and hitting symbolic targets. On the other side, you've got Ukraine with this surgical approach. They're not aiming for headlines. They're aiming to dismantle Russia's ability to even wage war by going after its economic and military lifelines.
I mean, just think about it. While their own cities are being pummeled, Ukrainian forces are hitting back with incredible precision. They took out a major oil refinery, a critical pipeline, and not just one, but multiple advanced Russian radar systems. These aren't symbolic targets. These are the engine and the eyes of the Russian war machine. And the impact of hitting those economic targets, it was almost instant. Suddenly you had reports flooding in about these huge fuel shortages. We're talking massive lines at gas stations, not just in occupied parts of Ukraine, but even spilling over into Russia's ally Belarus. That's how you create logistical chaos.
Okay, so we've seen this incredible duel in the sky. But how does all of that connect back to the brutal, grinding reality of the war on the ground?
You know, even with all the focus on the air war, the ground fighting was just as intense, if not more so. On the very same day as that record attack, Ukraine reported inflicting nearly 1,000 casualties on Russian forces. And just look at the equipment losses. Over 100 vehicles, dozens of artillery pieces. The grind on the front line did not stop for a second. Now, Ukraine's air defense performance here was nothing short of remarkable. Intercepting 92% of a barrage that big is amazing. But, and this is the crucial part, with over 800 things flying at you, that remaining 8% is still a really significant number. We're talking about roughly 64 drones and missiles that still got through. And those are the ones that caused all that damage we saw earlier.
And it's so important to remember this war is being fought on the information front, too. It's actually fascinating. Analysts are pointing out how Russia is using public-facing war maps to its advantage. They can make tiny, insignificant movements look like these big, permanent breakthroughs, all to create this narrative, this illusion of an inevitable victory.
But you know, in the middle of all this high-tech warfare and strategic maneuvering, you get these just unbelievable human stories of resilience. A complex special operation managed to successfully rescue 4 Ukrainian soldiers. And get this, one of them had been hidden and cared for by medics inside a hospital in occupied territory all the way since the battles of 2022. Just an incredible story of courage.
So, all of this brings us to the future. How are both sides adapting? What's next in terms of technology and strategy for this evolving air war?
Okay, so remember those radar systems Ukraine took out? This is why that's such a big deal. A system like the Kasta-22 is designed specifically to spot low-flying things like drones and cruise missiles. So when Ukraine destroys one, they're not just taking out a piece of hardware. They are systematically blinding Russia's air defense, creating gaps that they can exploit later on.
And speaking of exploiting gaps, Ukraine's own long-range capabilities are about to get a huge boost. They're set to get something called the ERAM, the Extended Range Attack Missile. The key things here are it's new, it's relatively cheap, and it's a long-range cruise missile they can fire from their existing jets. That's a potential game changer.
And here's the rollout plan to get these powerful new weapons into Ukrainian hands. It's going to start small, with a test batch of just 10 missiles coming as soon as this October. Then production really kicks into gear next spring, leading up to the first major delivery of over 800 of these missiles scheduled for 2026.
So when you step back and look at this whole 24-hour episode, it really highlights a fundamental shift in modern warfare. And it leaves us with this really critical question for the future, right? As these super precise, long-range weapons become more and more common for everyone, how does the very definition of a strategic target evolve? Is it the government building that makes the news? Or is it the oil refinery that quietly fuels the tanks? That's the question this war is forcing us and every military to answer.